Good morning, friends, and welcome to another reading vlog. Look at this. It is the perfectly beautiful fall morning. The leaves are just falling like rain, and it's just perfect out this morning. I love it. All right, we're getting ready to do it. It's like 8 a.m. I picked up a vanilla chai frappuccino from McDonald's. We got the book, and we're gonna dive in. So let's see how this goes. Okay, hi guys. I thought I would come and film a proper intro to this vlog. I just had to show you the beautiful weather we're having right now. It's gonna get cold soon though, so. I see Calgary, which is another city in my province, got snow already. So it's coming for us. It just hasn't arrived yet. Anyway, this is a reading vlog that is a long time coming. In like 2016 or 2017, I picked up this book, The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. I actually have 2 copies of it somehow. I don't know how I have 2 copies. I have this one and then the original copy. This is like the movie tie-in cover. How do I have 2 copies of it? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We are going to read it finally. I know I'm gonna love it. I keep putting it off. Anyway, I started. I'm currently on page 79, which is just past where I was the first time I started reading it. So basically, this is a kind of historical fiction / haunted house story. When the book starts, we meet Dr. Faraday, who is the doctor in a small town in the early 1900s. Well, now I guess when it starts, it's I think 1919. He's a small boy and he's at this house called 100 Halls, which is the haunted house in question. And he's there to there's some sort of town festival and the different fancy houses host this picnic type thing on their lawn. And he's there and the lady of the house is giving out these awards to the kids and he gets one. He ends up, even though it's very strict, nobody goes in the house policy, his mom knows someone who works there and they let him go in and look around. And he's just in awe of this house. It's so big and so beautiful, especially to a little kid. It's like extra intensely beautiful to him as a little boy. And at one point he steals a wooden acorn off of the molding, hoping no one will notice, but eventually his mom finds it, and to punish him for defacing the house and stealing, she puts it in the fire. Then we get a flash forward 30 years later. He's now the town doctor, and his partner in the medical clinic usually deals with the family, but he's having an emergency and they're having an instance with their maid, Betty, I think her name is. Turns out, once he's alone with her to talk to her, that she's not really feeling that sick. She's kind of faking it because she's very young. She's like a teenager. Because she's scared of being in the house and she kind of wants to go home for a while because at this point the family's lost a lot of their fortune. The house is in complete disarray, and Dr. Faraday finds that really sad and unsettling because of how beautiful it once was, but they don't have the money for the upkeep. So Betty, is her name Betty? I think so. Betty's the only live-in help they have, but she, like I said, she's scared of the stairs and the house and the nighttime. And so he kind of lets the family in on that, and then they try to make things a little easier for her because they don't want her to quit. And then they'd be out to help. So now he's getting to know the family a little more. Caroline and Roderick are the 2 kids, and then there's the mom, Mrs. Ayres, I think the family name is, Ayres, Ayres. And now he's getting to know Caroline a little more. At first, she's described as very homely, but as he's getting to know her more, he's finding he likes her. So that's where we're at. We also learned early on, when he was a little boy, there were other kids. The family had other children, but they died over the years, and then later they had 2 more kids, the 2 that are now alive and in the house and adults. So, and Roderick, he's got some injuries from like the war. Like his leg is really bad. He's got a lot of scars and burns. So Dr. Faraday thinks, well, maybe I could help him. I feel like I have maybe some of the technology that could help him. At first they're like, well, we can't afford that. But then he words it in a way that makes it sound like it's kind of selfish of him to want to help them. Like they'd be helping him because he would get a chance to practice some of the new technologies that he doesn't really otherwise have a chance to practice. So that's where we're at. And we just hit chapter 3. The chapters are super long, which I think is what put me off the last time. I like short chapters. But it's the, I mean, the prose is outstanding. Sarah Waters is a fantastically talented writer. So we're gonna leave it there for now. Carry on with the vlog and I'll update you as I move on. And here's your notice. There will probably be spoilers when we do the updates. So let's get going. Went out to the car this morning. Now things are a little frosty. Okay, so yeah, we're in the car now. It hasn't snowed here yet, but it's definitely, as you can see, frosty. And if you can see here, if you saw my last vlog, that's where the rock hit the windshield. You can see the outline of it. Okay, hi, hello. It is Saturday morning. Ed and I are getting ready now to go run some errands. Thought I'd just update you on how the reading's coming. Oh, it's coming all right. I'm on about page 50 and I'm really enjoying it so far. A lot of the beginning is him telling us about his memories of this house when he was little. And now he's at the house in the capacity of being a doctor. Okay, so I've just finished chapters 3 and 4. Things are really picking up now a bit. Chapter 3 was kind of just a party that the Aries were having. It kind of read to me like Jane Austen. A lot of this book actually kind of does, which is a compliment. You know I love Jane Austen. There was a party, and then at the end of the party there was an incident with this little girl that was brought to the house. She gets bitten by the family dog. And then the next chapter is kind of dealing with the aftermath of that, which of course was sad. There was sad. The dog had to be put down, but it's very tastefully done. It's just very sad. It's not graphic or anything like that. The doctor just comes and takes care of it. Also, I thought I'd show you while I have you here. We were out running errands today, and I picked up the 2022 Disney ornament. If you've seen my Vlogmas, we get this ornament every year. I think we've got from 2016 to now, but not 2021 because I couldn't find that one. But we got this one. And they're so cute and sparkly and look so nice in the tree lights. Okay, back to reading. Saturday evening now. I thought we'd pop into the kitchen and see Ed because we haven't seen him in a while. And we're making tacos.
Love it. Love making tacos.
Yes, it's a favorite for sure. And one of Anna's too, but unfortunately
she's still off in, like, well, I would say she's off in college, but I know that's not what we say in this country. She's at university.
Yeah.
She's at university. To me, she's off to college. She's at college.
Yeah, because you're American.
Yes, because I'm American. And that's what we say.
Yep.
It's like even on Blue's Clues. Where did Steve go? College.
That's right.
You go to college. That's what you do. You go off to college.
Yep. So now we're gonna have some tacos and then watch
a spooky thing.
Yeah.
We're even having beer.
Yep.
Like official
like tacos.
Yes. And this
Mexican
is supposedly
beer.
Mexican beer.
Yep.
I don't know how officially Mexican it is
I
because
don't
it's
know.
in Canada, so
Well, it could be imported.
yes.
Alright. And then we've got little Trixie here having a snooze. Okay, quick check-in here. I was going to do it on my regular camera set up on the tripod, but my battery's dead. So for now, I just wanted to pop in and say I just finished chapter 7. So things are so good. I don't know why I waited so long to read this. I'm loving it so much. So Roderick is really going through it. He's confiding in Dr. Faraday that he's feeling things and sensing things in the house, that he feels like he has to be the one to hold everything together, or the evil that's inside the house is going to consume his entire family. So the doctor, being a doctor, thinks that he's struggling with mental illness and should perhaps be institutionalized to be able to work through these problems. Okay, so at first Roderick is really sort of hurt that Dr. Faraday isn't believing him and is leaning more towards blaming it on mental illness. But then there's an incident at the house where there's a fire. In fact, there's many little fires. And it's just by luck that Caroline happened to wake up because she heard the commotion, or she heard something that woke her and made her go down to Roderick's bedroom where she found the first fires. Then later they're in the kitchen and they're just sitting there and a fire breaks out behind Roderick in the kitchen. And that's really kind of Caroline and her mom and the maid Betty, they all see it, and it's like it's hard to deny no matter the difficult time Dr. Faraday has accepting it, like they all saw it. So how do you explain that? Anyway, after that, Roderick's more inclined to go somewhere to get help because he's spiraling at this point and he doesn't want to be. So eventually he's taken to a psychiatric hospital to get, to spend some time, to get some help. And Dr. Faraday and Caroline and Mrs. Ayres go and visit him at first every week, but eventually the doctor at the hospital tells them that Roderick has asked not to see them, that he finds it really difficult when they come to visit. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm really enjoying it, really enjoying it, and I can't wait to see where this goes, what happens. I would say if you are looking for something spooky to read this season that's not scary, but more just a little spooky, this would be a great read for you. Because I know some of you guys don't like, the scary horror novels and are looking for more gentle spooks. I had a bit of a talk about this with my friend Kim on Facebook earlier in the week. This would be a great one. Okay, so tonight I'm doing some final edits on my book that's coming out in a couple of months, or month and a half, maybe not even, I don't know yet. But I'm also listening to Taylor Swift's new album. I've been listening to it pretty much non-stop since it came out Thursday night. Look at that picture of her too. She's so beautiful. Anyway, my all-time favorite Taylor Swift album is the Quarantine album that came out in 2020, Folklore. I also love Evermore, and that's where I really got into her. So I was kind of curious as to what this album would be, and I love it. I love it. It's got a taste of so many of her other albums. It's like sort of a trip down memory lane plus something new. So let me know if you've also been listening. Good morning, friends. It is now 8 a.m. Monday morning. I'm literally sitting outside Walmart waiting for them to open because I have to go there today, and I want to go when I'm like the only person in there because Walmart overwhelms me. So we got 9 minutes left, then we're going in. Then we're going to grab a coffee and then head home and finish this book today. All right, I'm back home. We've got our coffee, we got our book, we got our candle. We're gonna get back into it, and I'm hoping to finish the book today and maybe even get the video up, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I just finished chapter 8. That's the chapter in which the good doctor takes Caroline to a company function. It's a dance for doctors and nurses at the hospital he works at. Things got awkward real quick. The dance went okay, but then as the evening wore on, he began to feel really conflicted about the feelings that he's having for her and whether or not he should be having them. Oh, and learning that everybody in town thinks there's something going on. And he's really conflicted. He finds her very plain, very homely. And then he feels ashamed at feeling that way about her. Then there was the drive home where there was, some electricity in the car. She doesn't want to go home. He takes her for a drive to this pond that he likes to go to. against his, not better judgment, well, maybe, he decides, okay, well, she's interested in me. I definitely feel something for her. He goes to make a move. She ends up getting real uncertain about it. She ends up kicking him in the jaw. And then they get home. Then there's an awkward kiss on the step. And he finds that he's really wanting her now. So that's where we're at. It was very awkward. All right, friends, we've done it. You, me, Sarah Waters. We finished it. We just finished it 30 seconds ago. And as I knew I would, I absolutely loved it. So let me recall where we left off talking about, oh yes, the awkward dance date. Things really kicked off from there. There was some awkward courting between Doctor and Caroline. But what really got going was the haunting in Hundreds Hall. Some really unsettling things started to happen. First, it started in the kitchen with Betty, the live-in maid, and Mrs. Beasley, who was the maid that came like once a week to help out. And they started noticing things would be moved in the kitchen, and there was leftover from when the house was first built. There was a tube where that you could talk to someone on the second floor, could talk to someone in the basement in the kitchen through this tube, and they started noticing whistling coming through, and they were getting really upset about it, really scared by it. So they get the mother, Mrs. Ayres, involved, and she begins to be concerned about it too. And she goes up to the nursery where the tube begins, and just weird things start happening in that nursery. That's the nursery where she has a lot of memories attached to her first daughter, Susan, who died. I know earlier on in the video I thought there was a son and a daughter that died. I think I said that, or else I just thought it, but I think I said it, and no, that's not true. It was just the daughter, Susan. I got confused. Anyway, other things they find throughout the house are like engravings or like names, a bunch of S's written on the walls, but it's not on top of the wall. It's almost as if it's under the paint coming through, which would be very unsettling. So Mrs. Ayres is up in the nursery, and she just weird things are happening. She gets locked in there. The door gets locked. Eventually, after banging and banging, Caroline, who wasn't at home when she came up and all this was going on in the kitchen, she returns home with Betty, and they run upstairs and they get her out of the room. And at this point, she's cut. Glass has cut her from all the banging, and she's bleeding quite badly. So they take her out, they call the doctor, he comes, and Dr. Faraday, no matter who says what about ghosts to him or hauntings, he's not buying it. He constantly has other reasons for why these things are happening, but it's to the point now where Caroline's also getting shaken, and he looks at her as a fairly sensible woman, but even that won't quite convince him. So if you'll remember, the brother Roderick, at this point, he's still in the clinic because he's lost his mind, they assume, even though he was very adamant that it was the house, and he was trying to protect his mother and sister from the house. So now the doctor's thinking that the mother's losing her mind as well, because she's talking about the ghost of her daughter, and she tells the doctor, like, I see her all the time. And he says, you see her? And she says, no, I'm not see her, but I hear her and I feel her presence. I've willed her to be here by missing her so much. So he thinks she's losing her marbles too, and he tells Caroline, we need to get her out of this house and into a facility where she can be monitored and watched more closely. And at this point, she's like, well, you won't be happy until you have all three of us in a mental institution. So he wants to take her immediately, but that won't work because it's too late or it's the weekend or something. So he's going to come back in the morning for her. So at this point, him and Caroline are engaged. So he wants to spend the night there, but Caroline's like, absolutely not, go home. So she does. She watches her all night. He had given her a sedative to sleep. So once her mother's out, sound asleep, Caroline around 5 a.m. goes back to her room to get a bit of sleep. And then in the morning, the doctor gets a call saying there's been an accident at the house. He arrives and finds out that through the night, in the brief period of time between when Caroline went to her bed at 5 a.m. and when young Betty brought the breakfast tray to her at 8 a.m., Mrs. Ayers had taken her own life in her room in a very unsettling sort of way. So they have the funeral, and now he's pushing Caroline to marry him, to set a date. Like, we need to do this, we need to get on it. She doesn't want to set a date, but he pushes it. 6 weeks from now, she's like, okay. Eventually one day he goes, after her being very non-committal to any plans, one day he goes and buys a ring and a dress and flowers. Over the past few weeks, Caroline's been very off because she's scared of the house. And he goes up to visit her to bring her the dress and the ring and everything, and she says, I can't do this, I can't marry you. In fact, I can't even stay here. Because one of the main reasons she had said yes to marrying him was she thought that would mean he would take her away. They'd move to London or wherever. But now she realizes he means to stay in the house and live in the house and have a family in the house. And she's like, not a chance, I'm not doing that. So she's like, I can't marry you. And I'm leaving. I'm going to go to America or Canada or somewhere. So he's very distraught by this. He wants to marry her. He wants the house. And she kind of thinks all he wants is the house. But he's like, no, I want you too. He's very distraught. He goes home, drinks himself into a stupor. The next day he goes back and tries to convince her. And she's like, no, I'm selling the house. I'm leaving. That's it. Leave my house now. Do not come back. So he leaves. Then the days go by. He finds out he's going to be leaving town the end of May, and it's a few days away from that. Eventually the day comes that was supposed to be their wedding day, and he keeps himself busy that day. And then that night he drives up close to the house, but he doesn't go in. He's a few miles away and he sleeps in his car. The next morning he finds out that Caroline has fallen to her death in the house. Betty, of course, young Betty is distraught, as you can imagine. There's talk of whether she jumped, whether she was pushed, what happened. There's a trial or some sort of hearing to question everyone and get to the bottom of it. And when Betty's there, called to the stand, she gives an account of what she saw that morning. Or that night. It was around 3 a.m. when she died, Caroline. And Betty says she heard someone moving about, so she went out of her room and saw that Caroline was up on the second floor where the nursery was, which of course was where her mother really got spooked and all those bad things started happening to her mother. She said she heard Caroline say, "You," as though she saw someone, and then fell. Betty watched her fall. So that leads you, of course, to think she went up, was called up there for whatever reason, saw the ghost of her sister, and then in her shock fell or was pushed by the ghost, who knows. But then there's also that part in your mind where you're like, he was asleep in his car a few miles away, Faraday was. And he had weird dreams about the house. And there's a part of you that's like, what if he had snuck in and was up there and pushed her? But of course, the more solid answer seems to be that she finally saw the ghost of her sister as well that had been tormenting her mother. But what if it was him? It probably wasn't. I don't know. I just liked how that ending just sort of give you a lot to think about. I liked that a lot. I also loved the beautiful mixture of historical fiction, which is a genre I love. It's not one I read a ton of now. I'm kind of on my thriller / horror era. But before that, I loved historical fiction. And this was just a beautiful melding together of a ghost story, a haunted house story, and beautiful historical fiction. The prose, the way Sarah Waters writes a book, it's so beautiful. Her writing is absolutely stunning. And the ending, let me just read you the ending here. Because he talks about after the hearing and everything. Hang on, let me get my eyes. He talks about, at the very end, we get a short chapter update. It's 3 years later. He still visits the house every so often. And, just to walk through, give it a sweep. Make sure he's just drawn there. Because it makes you think. Maybe the house was affecting him in some way as well. Anyway, so it says, every so often I'll sense a presence or catch a movement at the corner of my eye, and my heart will give a jolt of fear and expectation. I'll imagine that the secret is about to be revealed to me at last, that I will see what Caroline saw and recognize it as she did. If Huntridge Hall is haunted, however, its ghost doesn't show itself to me, for I'll turn and am disappointed realizing that what I'm looking at is only a cracked window pane, and that the face gazing distortedly from it, baffled and longing, is my own. Beautiful. She's getting a 5-star rating from me. I loved it. And I'm glad I decided to read this as a sort of reading vlog, because it really kicked me into gear to get this book read after carrying it around with me for 5 years, and I'm very happy I did. Would definitely recommend The Little Stranger. It's not too scary. It's just a little spooky. If you're someone that doesn't like it too scary. But it's beautiful. The writing's absolutely stunning. And I can't wait to read more from Sarah Waters. So there you go. That's gonna do it for me. I'm gonna go see now if I can find the movie. Because I know it was made into a movie a few years ago, and I would love to see it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you again really, really soon. Have a good day. Bye.